Hi, I'm Rob with the Aquaponic Source. To be a successful aquaponic farmer, lighting is one of the topics that you really have to have a good understanding of. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and it can get confusing when dealing with lighting or figuring out what kind of lights you want to purchase for your grow. So today, we're going to cover a few different things. We're going to cover how light interacts with plants. We're going to cover how you measure and understand light, and also the type of hardware that goes into building and configuring your own artificial lighting system. Let's get started. Light is measured in the form of wavelength, and the wavelength of light that plants can take up and use for energy is different than the wavelength of light that our eyes can see. We call this wavelength that plants can use PAR, or photosynthetically active radiation. This range of wavelength falls between 400 and 700 nanometers. That is the type of light that plants can use. We measure this output and the amount of light with PPFD, which stands for photosynthetic photon flux density. All that is a measure of the amount of photons hitting an area every second. So the unit we use for PPFD is micromoles, of the amount of light, per square meter per second. And that is how we measure light intensity, either from an artificial fixture or from the sun. Another measurement we use for understanding grow lighting is DLI, or daily light integral. This is a measure of the average amount of light that hits your greenhouse or maybe your indoor aquaponic system over the course of an entire day. The unit we use for this is micromoles per meter squared per second per day, or the amount of light hitting a square meter every single second, averaged over the course of an entire day. This tells us a good broad picture of the amount of light that's entering your greenhouse. Certain crops have certain DLI requirements. Some plants like more light than others. So we use this information when configuring grow lighting in order to give your plants the best environment possible for success. So let's talk about how we actually measure light. One way we do that is with a PAR meter. This meter here measures PPFD, or the amount of intensity from an artificial light or the sun. Younger plants require a lower PPFD level than older plants, which can take in more light. Basically, this is a baseline measurement of how intense your lighting source is, and it gives you some information about whether or not these lights are going to be adequate enough to provide optimal growing environment for your plants. With a meter like this, we can simply take the probe, put it underneath where the light is, and it will give us a reading of how much light is hitting this little circle at any given time. And a little meter like this that's relatively inexpensive also has the ability to do data logging and track some information, so you can understand how the light changes in your growing environment over the course of a day. And what we can do is we can take this information, do a little bit of math, and figure out how this light intensity that you've measured reflects your total DLI that the plants receive over the course of an entire day. The final calculation that we use when understanding grow lighting is converting our PPFD measurement to DLI, or daily light integral. Once again, this is a measure of the amount of light that your plants receive over the course of an entire day. So what we do to calculate this is we need two different measurements. First, we need our PPFD, which we took with our PAR meter, or oftentimes light manufacturers will have that information available for you. Also, we need to know the amount of hours per day that the plants are receiving light. So if you're in a greenhouse, this could be the amount of sunlight and the number of hours that the sunlight hits your plants. Or if you're indoors or using supplemental lighting, it can be the number of hours that your lights are actually on. The next step is to use our PPFD measurement that we took with our PAR meter and the number of hours that our lights are on per day, or the number of hours that we receive from the sun per day, and calculate our DLI, or daily light integral. There are a lot of ways to do this using longhand math, but personally I prefer to just use an online calculator where all you do is you enter in the PPFD and the number of hours that your lights are on. And then it will spit out a nice clean number of your DLI. Normally, this is in the range of somewhere between 5 and 30 or 40. And once again, that unit is micromoles per meter squared per second per day. Different plants have different DLI requirements. For example, lettuce and other leafy greens has a maximum DLI of 17. What this means is that there are added benefits of increasing the DLI of the light hitting your plants up until it hits 17. Beyond 17, your plants really can't take up much more. If you're hitting your plants with a DLI of 22, but the leafy greens can take up a max of 17, you're wasting 5 DLIs of light per day that your plants can't take up. DLI is an important calculation to understand because not only does it tell you the amount of light that's available to your plants, but it also helps you understand the amount of light that they can take up. Anything beyond the plant's DLI threshold is wasted. And so in order to create the most efficient lighting system, you want to understand DLI. Photoperiod is important to understand because certain species of crops have different photoperiod requirements. For example, lettuce and leafy greens require a dark period of time every single day where the light doesn't shine on them. During this time, the plant goes through different metabolic processes that allows them to grow at optimal levels. If we were to just give them light 24 hours a day, their growth would actually suffer because they aren't fully metabolizing. In contrast, other species of crops, specifically some fruiting crops during the vegetative stage of their life cycle, can actually absorb light 24 hours a day without any detriment to their growth. It all depends on the species of the crop. So I'd recommend doing some research in the type of crops that you want to grow and understanding what kinds of light that they can absorb and their requirements. This will allow you to understand the lighting system that they need and design accordingly.